Early October 1956, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Pontchartrain rides out a heavy storm halfway between Hawaii and California. For 2 weeks, the Pontchartrain has been serving at Ocean Station November, a 210 square mile patrol area, giving navigational aid to ships and aircraft. Another function is to gather weather data. These reports are radioed every 3 hours to Coast Guard stations ashore for use in making weather forecasts. Pontchartrain is 40-year-old Captain William K. Earl.
The Pontchartrain was approaching the end of her 3-week patrol. It had been a rather routine one. We had taken the usual weather observations 3 times a day, sending up large balloons for weather observations aloft. Weather comes in, comes off. Not too good, not too bad. Was a little bit boring, frankly. Always gets that way toward the end of the 3-week patrol when you sit out in the middle of the ocean and occupy one little square there. The people up in Combat Information Center that do all the communication with the many passing aircraft perhaps are closest to humanity. The rest of us see goody birds and occasional dolphins, whales, and that's about it. We were all about ready to go back.
By morning of the 15th, the sea is calm again. Off come the ship's wraps and another day of work begins. Besides their regular duties, crew members carry out studies of the ocean's interaction with atmosphere and shore boundaries, taking precision depth recordings, salinity readings, and counts of migratory birds and fish. Techniques of rescue are constantly practiced, especially those which apply to aircraft forced to ditch at sea. This work is important, but the life aboard ship becomes monotonous. 127 bored men look forward to getting back to home port. But right now comes a moment of relaxation. Over the western horizon lies Hawaii, where every day is a kind of holiday. It has to be. In no other of the 50 states is the economy based on having a good time. And this day has been another Jubilee Day. Honolulu International Airport is a busy crossroads through which thousands of travelers flit into and out of paradise. Pan American Flight number 943, just in from Tokyo, is scheduled to leave at 6:30 for San Francisco with 26 people aboard. One of them is Mrs. Ruby Damey of Oakland, California.
I'd come in from Tokyo 3 days before on a round-the-world trip with a friend of mine and some other people. We'd been all over Europe and Egypt and the Holy Land and well over. We'd had a fine time, but we'd been gone since June, and by the time we got to Hawaii, we were just dying for some hamburgers and a milkshake.
Flight 943 is a luxury strato-clipper named the Sovereign of the Sky. Captain Richard Ogg, with 20 years' experience in the air, will take her to San Francisco.
My crew and I picked up this airplane at the Honolulu Airport. We greeted our passengers went aboard, and through our pre-departure briefing, the weather had been shown as excellent, air smooth, And everything pointed to an easy and a pleasant last leg to San Francisco and home. We had a minor delay because I noticed abnormal sparks coming out of the exhaust pipes of number 4 engine. I had the flight engineer carefully check. He and I both made certain that this was not due to a mechanical malfunction of anything. It was just carbon pouring out of the exhaust pipes of number 4 engine. And then we proceeded on with our takeoff.
Flight 943 is airborne at 8:30 p.m. The prevailing tailwinds help, and Captain Ogg is soon ahead of schedule.
After we took off, they showed us where the Mae Wests were under our seats and how to put them on and all, and told us to read the little pamphlet about safety things in case of emergency. It's in the little pocket in back of the seat in front of you, you know? But I've been all through that at least 5 times already on my trip. And once you've read it and seen the jacket, well, you take it all as a matter of course and you just don't bother. I'm not too fond of sleeping aboard a plane somehow. I usually just rest. I was thinking about getting in the morning. We have a drugstore in Oakland, and my husband always opens up. Even though we were ahead of schedule, he was going to have a rough time picking me up and still opening the store.
Our flight plan called for a climb at the midpoint from 13,000 to 21,000 feet. During the climb, and as the engine power was changed, we suddenly became aware of a very loud rising sound from the left side of the airplane. The number 1 tachometer showed a tremendous increase in the RPM of number 1 engine, and it was obvious that we had a runaway propeller.
The whole plane was shaking. This awful whirling noise started up. It sounded like absolutely the worst lawnmower in the world. Just about this time, Captain Ogg's voice came over the loudspeaker, telling us we were having engine trouble and to fasten our seat belts, things like that. We were all pretty nervous by now, of course, but his voice was so calm, so we calmed down as best we could and waited.
We started losing altitude. Of course, the first thing that entered my mind was the presence of the Coast Guard ship not very far from us. Ocean Station November is a halfway point between Honolulu and San Francisco. Ocean Station November, this is Flight 943. Ocean Station November, Flight 943 calling. Ocean Station November, this is Flight 943, over.
Coast Guard Station, Ocean November. Flight 943, go ahead, over.
Ocean Station November, we have a runaway propeller and unable to feather it. You might have to ditch. Can you give us a continuous beacon? Over.
Roger, Flight 943. Beacon is now continuous. Your bearing from Station November is 256 degrees
The three boys in CIC were stunned for a moment, but then they sprung into the action that they had trained for. The general alarm went booming out throughout the ship. As soon as that finished ringing, I got on the public address system and told all hands that this was no drill, that there was an aircraft in difficulty in the immediate area, and to man their ditch and rescue stations on the double.
Ocean Station November, flight 943. Number 4 engines failed now. Losing altitude rapidly. Stand by to help us, over.
Roger, 943. Mayday
Both
condition
Captain
known.
Ogg and I have
All hands
realized that this was
standing
a
by,
very
radio
critical
mayday.
condition. He had things under control. I greatly admired his coolness and the almost business-like manner in which he was approaching this emergency. We all knew that as of the time of the ditching, there might be many casualties. I made every effort, of course, to reassure him that we had equipment, a team, and the facilities and manpower down below ready to do the best job possible in saving the people.
The poncha train down below us. What a sight it was, and what a relief to know help was nearby. All those flares, they really looked like you were looking down on an amusement park or the 4th of July.
We bottomed out, so to speak, at 2,000 feet. I wanted to land right away by the ship. And after questioning the engineer about the likelihood of the propeller staying on there, his answer was that it would have probably come off by now if it was going to, so I decided to circle the ship and wait for daylight, giving ourselves the advantage of daylight landing, plus using up our fuel to make the airplane far more floatable. Folks, this is your captain speaking. We know now that landing at sea by this Coast Guard ship here is inevitable. The ship is completely equipped to help us out in any emergency, and we have aboard here life rafts and all equipment to make a safe landing at sea. We think we can remain aloft until daylight, however, and we'll probably land shortly after dawn by this ship. In the meantime, please follow the instructions of your cabin personnel.
All was ready for a nighttime ditching. Now a postponement. Through the rest of the night, the ships will circle, one above the other. There is an agony only waiting knows. For the next 3 hours, the crew and passengers of Flight 943 will ponder their fate. Pan American's the sovereign of the skies is a dying plane. Circling wearily, the crew nurses the engines with grim skill. In the cabin, the passengers waited out. A few even managed to sleep. For most, it is a strained vigil, and prayers are shared.
I like to think that I was calmer than the rest of the passengers because I'd already had one bad experience with an airplane on this trip when leaving Egypt. But the Lord was with me. And right now, I had a lot of holy water from Jerusalem and the River Jordan and some medals blessed by the Pope. So I felt if anyone had a chance to survive, we did. Captain Ogg, who came back to talk to us every so often and to tell us what was going on. And knowing that the Coast Guard ship was down there, we stayed, well, let's not use the word calm. We were quiet.
During our circling, waiting for daylight, I visited the cabin personally, and so did the first officer. And I talked to passengers individually and told them what we were going to do and that we were equipped to take care of this situation. We had no panic and no tendency toward panic on the part of anyone.
The night is filled with goodwill. Every ship within reach races toward Ocean Station November. Among them, the aircraft carrier Bennington. But only the Pontchartrain is there and ready. Dawn is 1 hour away.
During this long period of orbiting, we had time to perfect all of our arrangements for rescue. And at the first light of dawn, while we substituted a broad fire extinguisher foam path for the water light path, marking the ditch heading. Ditch heading, of course, is very critical. If you ditch up into the waves, you'll break your plane up very easily. You have to choose the ditch heading so that the plane will make the softest touchdown possible.
We were busy, of course, but I did have time to search my memory for every scrap of information I could gather up that would be of help to us in this landing at sea. The tail of the airplane would come off upon impact, and taking with it about 3 rows of passenger seats, and this prompted me to remove the passengers from that part of the airplane. I also recalled having seen some movies in which scale model airplanes were ditched, and I tried to remember how far they had skipped on the water before coming to rest, so I could adjust my own landing so to try to come to a stop right by the ship.
November, Flight 943. Your ship is sure a beautiful sight. We'll make a few practice runs and then we're coming in. We'll let you know when. Over. Roger, Flight 943.
I thanked him for his observation and told him that we were happy it was a comfort to him, and told him further that we were about ready to put his bacon and eggs on the fire, and anytime he was coming, let us know.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Commander of the Coast Guard ship has told me that his crew went swimming yesterday, that the water is warm and that there are no sharks in the area, and that he has everything ready to help us. And we touched down by his ship.
November 943, 1 minute now to impact. 1 minute to ditch now. There'll be people coming out both wing exits, people coming out the cabin door. There'll be children coming out first. Over. Roger, Flight 943. Wind 3.5 knots from northwest. Ceiling 3,000 feet. Wave height 1 to 2 feet in gentle continuous pattern from windward. Over.
Ocean Station November, this is Flight 943. We're definitely coming in this time. Over.
Everything goes right. Everyone follows instructions and does his part superbly. No one is lost, and a few minor injuries are suffered. The odds against it were incalculable, but a miracle has taken place.
Before leaving Honolulu, I had sent my husband a souvenir postcard, and the strangest thing was, this card was in one of the mail sacks aboard our flight, which the Coast Guard recovered. About a week after the accident, the card arrived at our home. It said, "Damaged in mailing."
Survivors are welcomed aboard the Pontchartrain, where an after-ditching breakfast has been waiting. The rejoicing is general, but it is calm beside what awaits them at the pier in San Francisco, 3 days hence. Three days after the rescue, the Pontchartrain enters the Golden Gate, and friends and relatives welcome their loved ones who are so incredibly survivors.